Welcome to Town Talk, the official podcast of Summerville, South Carolina, where we bring you the latest news and incredible guests here within the town of Summerville. And today, I am pumped to be joined by Brandon Roberts, the managing editor for the Summerville Journal scene. I'm sure all of you guys received the paper on Wednesday. This is the man behind it. And so I'm really excited to actually be able to bring you in and have a conversation to get to know a little bit more about you, what brought you here to Summerville, but also talk about the journal scene and what you guys offer and your goal and vision for as a paper here in Summerville. But to start, thank you for joining. I'm excited to have a conversation with you.
Well, thank you for having me. And I want to say this, and not because we're on your podcast or the town's podcast hosted by you, but you were one of the first people I met when I moved here.
Yes.
And you're one of my favorite people I've met since I moved here.
I appreciate that.
And that's the truth. We went to lunch, probably my first week here.
Oh, yeah.
And,
yeah.
But, how I got to Summerville.
Yes,
all
please.
Right.
Yeah, share it.
I want to give you the abridged version.
All right.
Because
it's,
yeah. Well, I'm 44.
Okay.
Which, it's kind of old for the... It's kind of old, but kind of not. I don't know. Maybe for this business, I'm kind of young. But I was born in a little town called Belfry, Kentucky. It's about 5 miles from the West Virginia border, and right in the coal mine country. Mm-hmm. Beautiful place. And the only two kind of people in my hometown, it seemed like growing up, had money were coal miners and attorneys. And I'm, 6'2", 280. Going underground in the coal mines just did not seem something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to be an attorney. So I graduated high school in 98. I played football all 4 years and, kind of wanted to relax. I don't want to say relax, but I was done with that stuff. So
yeah, the grimy, the hard job,
yes.
like the really dirty. What is it? What's that show? What's it called?
Yeah,
Dirty Jobs or something like that.
But
yeah, so you kind of you wanted to take a step back a little bit from that world, right?
Yes, from all that. And growing up and growing up there's not easy. I mean, I don't want to mean it's just not easy. It's just not easy. Not that it was, it's a hard place to live.
Yeah, and it's a good point because there's a ton of different locations where you could say it's not easy, and people from there know exactly what that means, right?
Anybody from Appalachia will know what I mean.
Yeah, it's the same thing with my hometown. It's like, like when I say, well, it's because it's Erie. Well, because Erie, Pennsylvania is where I'm from. And they'll be like, well, yeah, it is because it's Erie. Yeah. But people outside of Erie, they're like, oh, what? Yeah. So, no, I get it. Yeah. But continue.
Well, so I go to Eastern Kentucky University over, just like anybody, I guess, 18 years old. I followed a girl there.
Yeah.
When I could have gone to Vanderbilt or somewhere other than Eastern. Not that I don't love Eastern, but I love Eastern. So I go to Eastern, and I major in, I was just pre-law. First semester, and then I switch it to political science. So my advisor says, with the intention of going on to law school. So my advisor says, law schools really love students right now. This is, of course, late 90s, who can write well. I would suggest you take a minor in journalism. It'd help you get into law school in 3.5 years. So I did. Part of that journalism minor was a practicum, where basically I worked for the school, the college newspaper for free, for a grade.
Yeah.
Went to cover my first event. I think it was a women's volleyball game.
Yeah.
And I was hooked. I was just like, this is what I want. Yeah. I was like, I know I'm not going to make attorney money. Well, and then you got people saying, there's attorneys who work at McDonald's part-time because they're brokers. There's so many. And there's some who stand on the courthouse steps and bid for your case on their way in. And I'm like, well, if there's a possibility I could have that kind of life as an attorney, I might as well just be a journalist.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I switched them, and it's been journalism ever since, except for I think I had a few, as you know, I went into PR for a while, and then I did strategic communications for a while, but everything's been...
So what was your reason behind going into PR and strategic? So you had money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simply, I was working as the editor of the Georgetown, Kentucky newspaper called the News Graphic. And a lady who worked there, her dad was the judge executive of my home county.
Okay.
And she, I think, just jokingly said, or not jokingly, but like in passing, she says, "Oh, my dad needs a good PR guy. Are you interested?" The county's like hiring a PR guy. And I said, "Well, yeah, I mean." Anyway, so that ball started rolling, and it was like twice what I made at the paper. And I'm like, that's it. I got it. Plus, lower cost of living back home. So I moved back home and did that for 5 years. Missed newspapers the second I left them.
Yeah.
And then the second I went back, I remembered why I left. You know, it was all that. It's this love-hate cycle I'm in with this stuff. Then went to strategic communications for a while. Made way more money than I ever thought I'd make in my life with a journalism degree. Hated it. Mm-hmm. Hated the type I was doing. I'm sure I would love it somewhere else. But and then I told my wife, I said, I want to get back in newspapers. She said, if you're going to do that, let's go south. So I got online and started looking. Found this job, applied for it. Did 2 rounds of interviews. Got the job and moved.
And the rest is history. And the rest is history. So, yeah, I mean, when you talk about like the strategic communications and I mean, and how it's just like that love hate and that you just knew the thing. I had someone in my life tell me, you know, Chris, sometimes money doesn't talk.
That's it.
Yep. You know, if you find a role or something that you feel happy in, you feel respected and valued, then that's worth more than any price tag. That can
wise words, because I've found out, and you probably already found out that's true. I mean, I'd rather do this for what I make now than do that for what I was making then. Yeah,
and you know, you within the journal scene and working in a newspaper, you know, when I came up in my undergraduate, you know, that was a route I could have taken before I entered government communications. And one thing I remember is, you know, there is a lot of value that the community puts into their local paper. And so what you do is similar to kind of what I do. I give information to y'all, I give information to the public, but you guys give information to the public and spread that and make sure they have the news. And so you're really giving back to the community. And there's something special about that. First, working in like a strategic communications consulting role, right?
Yeah, someone told me once that PR is just journalism without both sides or something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you're right. It's really a delicate thing. Like people who don't know or people who never really thought about it will sit and say, you know, how hard is it just, you know, put stories on a page? Well, it is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Every week.
It is.
Because there's just so much that goes into it. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it's all the way down from our names spelled correctly to our addresses correctly, correct. So does it say Saturday, June 8th? Well, it should say Saturday, June 9th. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like this constant. There have been times, Chris, where I've been home in the bed and thought about something. Got up, got dressed, got in my car, drove back to the office, and fired up my computer and fixed it.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine because, I mean, if you make a mistake in something, I mean, it's on paper.
Well, that's it.
You know, you can't go back and edit like a Facebook post, right?
Right. But that's interesting you mentioned that because someone said, you know, having that print product puts a whole other level of accountability on there because once it's in print, it's in print. Mm-hmm. You know, and like I think there's a scene in The Godfather, or there's a scene in one of the mafia movies where he says, well, can they print a retraction? He says, yeah, and they'll print it in a week on page 9. You know, and this was on the front.
Yeah.
And that's how, once the mistake's made, you could retract and apologize and all that.
But it's done. Yeah. But that's what it takes, you know, it takes a team effort, right? It takes where you're getting the information from, right? And also the team that you have within the journal scene. For example, as a PIO, in case, you know, for the community, one of my roles is media relations. So, you know, I work with Brandon, his team, and all the other news networks and papers in the Low Country. And when I have information that I need to share to the community, not only will I share it via my own ways, but I will give it to Brandon. I will give it to other folks in the scene or in the Low Country, and they take that information. But if I give them something that has a mistake on it, that's not on them. That's on me, right? So. But then again, that kind of falls on you, right?
But it is, right.
So there's a lot of stress behind that. So how do you manage that? How do you manage, like, when the information that you gather from, let's say, PIOs or other, avenues that you get information from, how do you manage that, I guess, that what do you call it, telephone type situation? Basically,
any editor should have a system for that stuff. Immediately check dates, make sure the dates, but if you don't have a system in place for checking this stuff, and usually it should be in your head after a few years at least, it should be in your head, then that is on us. That's not on you.
Yeah,
that's the way I look at it.
No, I mean mistakes happen, especially you definitely within. Since we started working together, I've sent you things that had a little mistake in it, and you're like, "Hey, Chris, can you fix that?" Yeah, absolutely. So, and that happens. We're moving fast, but as and it's not about a PIO role, but PIOs we're pretty straight on. Kind of, we make sure everything is good, but things slip. But yeah, so like when it comes to what happens if something is published that is wrong? Like, is it a retraction? Is there a lot of stress behind that?
Yes. Yeah. There's well, I got 3 levels. I got corrections, clarifications, and retractions. Retractions means we just we take it back.
Yeah.
it never happened, and that's usually if a story divulges some information that wasn't public or whatever, then you run a retraction, and all that does is really protect you legally.
Yeah.
Then clarifications will be like, we ran a story that had about a community event that's on Saturday, June 8th, but we neglected to put the time in there. So we clarify that. And then, of course, a correction is just, hey, we called Chris Mikowski, Kirk Mikowski in a press release, and we regret the error.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I probably wouldn't even say anything. I'd be like, yeah, my name's Kirk.
Well, one time I was the editor of a paper in Hillsboro, Ohio, and there was 2 guys running for mayor, and one of them was named Dick Donnelly. In the headline, because I'm not 6 months out of college at this time, that's always going to be my excuse, but in the headline it said donkey instead of Donnelly. So it was like donkey to meet with Iron Workers Union or something like that. So I'm like, oh God. And it came out the day the 2 rival high schools played their basketball game in the town. In the county. So
just to add on.
Yeah, so I show up at this basketball game. Everybody in there's seen it. It's just like all this. It was just terrible. I know. I've worked for editors before. I've not worked for many actually. I was made editor 30 days after I graduated college.
Wow.
And I've basically been an editor They called. They were like, "Can you do it?" I'm like, "I can do it."
And once you step in that role once, it's kind of like, well, there's no down. You're just going to be editor.
It makes it difficult, yes, to work for somebody else once you've worked as the editor, because you get set in your ways the way you do stuff, and then you watch someone else do it, and you're like, man, they're messing this up. I can't.
Now, why do you think that is, from your opinion? I mean, and it's not just editor, but like, for us as humans, when we have. When we're working in a role and we get that feeling like, you want to step in, and why do you think that is? Do you think it's just a sense of comfort, or is it just kind of our human nature and how?
Well, I don't know, because I have had like my strategic communications job, but like there was going to be some shuffling around in the hierarchy there, and I was praying that they didn't ask me to do it. I didn't want to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But most newspapers where if I've not been the editor, I have, and I'm not saying I've gunned for their job, but I would, I made it clear that if it ever came open, I wanted it.
Yeah.
Just because I mean, you're not going to meet two people in general, but especially two newspaper editors who do stuff even similar, so, and some people like that. Some people, I mean, everybody's not a fan of the changes I'll make or have made, but some people are, and that's just going to happen.
Yeah.
I just want to keep reading it no matter what.
Yeah. So let's dig into how y'all operate, right? I think a lot of our community members are going to be interested to hear kind of what the process is from start to finish, because you release a paper every Wednesday, correct? But you also have online presence.
Yeah.
So what's the process like every week, from start to finish? Talk about maybe the team that you have in the office, how, the different roles. Kind of give us a really deep dive of the Summerville Journal scene.
Well, I forget who said the quote, but somebody said, "Do you want to know the value of a week? Ask a weekly newspaper editor." And I'm like, I've always thought that's great because, I have 3 papers. A lot of people don't know that. I also have Goose Creek and Berkeley.
Yep.
So Wednesday morning is my Goose Creek deadline. Thursday morning is my Berkeley deadline. Monday morning, I'm gonna get killed for saying this. Monday morning's was when the Summerville paper goes to press. Friday is supposed to be the deadline, but between me and you and whoever else is listening, I will accept things over the weekend if it's something, I mean, if it's a barbecue for, whatever, and it's in the middle of July, obviously I'm not going to scramble to get that in the paper that week. But if there's things that come in over the weekend that need to go in, I will make arrangements to get it in.
Yeah.
Of course, the Summerville paper is just myself and Roger Lee, my sports guy. I try to go ahead and anything I cover, I go ahead and put it online.
Yeah.
At least part of it. That way it can just be there, and if anything develops between that's one of the beauties of a weekly is it gives you, like, if I go cover a press conference, like they say when Chief Wright had the press conference about the Chick-fil-A issue, the problem, I put that story online immediately. But if SLED were to go ahead and charge him the next day, I could change that story online. You know what I mean? And by the time the paper come out, I got way more information than the story that's online. So that's another reason, like, the print, I don't want the print paper just to be a carbon copy of the thing that's already online. I also don't want the Summerville paper to be like a Post and Courier Summerville edition.
Yeah, because it is a sister company.
Yes.
Yeah, they're connected, but
yeah, they own us.
Yeah.
But I very rarely will I try not to reprint the stories that they do.
Yeah.
I'll either do my own, or a lot of times we don't have the same. Like, what I mean is, a lot of times they're not interested in covering the same things I will cover. Like, somebody turning 100, like I did with Elise.
I mean, you're deeper into the town.
I'm more local community type stuff. Yeah. As I am the big picture.
Big news.
Yeah. I don't, the Summerville Journal scene ceases to have its value to the community if it's just a Post and Courier reprinted.
Agreed.
But that also makes it kind of difficult because, not really. We do live we have and you know this, the advantage of living in a place that's just very news heavy. There's all kinds of stuff going on all the time with the growth. You could always do a traffic story.
The events.
Yeah.
The amount of events we have in our town, the people that we have in our town are incredible, and the stuff that they put on, whether it's charity events. Listen, I'll sit here for an hour and talk up our community because they're awesome. But continue. Sorry.
Well, no, it's like,
sorry, I'm definitely at Team Summerville.
well, and you're right, because every time I go somewhere, they're like, that guy is who, he's vice president of some whatever here, but he also played 6 years for the Yankees.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I read an article the other day that said Summerville has the highest concentration of professional athletes of any city in America.
They really do, yeah.
In terms of, population.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, that's just an interesting, like I read an article yesterday about there's a former baseball player that's coaching out here at this Extra Efforts place. So I'm like,
it's the pine trees.
Yeah, it must be.
It's the pine trees, I'm telling you.
Well, all right. Let me finish answering your question before. So basically, we start with a blank slate every week.
Yep.
We start writing the stories, whatever. Monday morning comes around, sometimes Sunday night, depending on if everything's settled. And there's a document we have online that I just, I'll take the story slug, we call it, which is what we name it in the system, and I'll put it over on an Excel document that's got all the pages numbered, and I'll put top, bottom, left, right, middle, whatever. Our designers put it together, send it back to me. I look at it, and it goes. And I got to do that for 3 papers every week.
By yourself?
Well, I got one reporter that covers Goose Creek and Berkeley, but I mean, that's a big area to cover.
I mean, so these are big areas now. They're not small towns.
That's right. Well, like you mentioned, you're talking about the events and stuff. If you throw in Goose Creek and Moncks Corner events with Summerville's, that's all I get done. I mean, that's all I would get done. So luckily, I had his name's Matt Bice. If you know everybody, you probably knows Matt. He's been there forever. Was on TV before that. So and then Tuesday morning, I basically started over the whole thing
all over again.
Yep.
So basically, you rely. I mean, you do your best, and I work with you, but you do your best to try to get the information, get to know, and go to these events or go to get this news. But I know you must rely on you getting the information, right? You know, you have from us PIOs or from community members or anything like that. Is there a big reliance in that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Jennifer Passmore at the DD2.
Incredible. She's incredible.
Yeah, people like you all are just, I mean, you're integral to what I mean, I couldn't do it. I just wouldn't have enough time in the day to go out and get all the info. Like, for instance, we just did our graduation section.
Yep.
Jennifer emails me a link, and she says, here's our graduation information. She emails me a link, and it's got all the graduates from every DD2, all 3 DD2 high schools, with pictures of the valedictorian and salutatorian. Do you know how long it would have taken me to go get that on my own?
A long time. A long time.
Yes.
And it's true. I mean, yeah. I mean,
and even if I could have walked in and they just handed it to me, I want to type what I saw. One of the high schools had 400. I think it might have been Cane Bay, but they had 495 graduates.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to sit and type all those names without her, you know what I mean? Or without the internet, I guess. But, they're just y'all are just.
It works. It's a team effort, right? Because even within the last since we started working together, if I'm obviously I'll send you pictures and stuff. But even if I'm called on a different event or something, but I wanted to get content from another event that's happening within the town, you'll send me a picture, and so we work together to try to really get our community, and that's what it's about.
That's it.
Is our community and getting them the real information in a timely manner, right? And getting them the best information that we can provide them as timely and as accurate as we can be, right? I mean, our goal is to be 100% accurate at all times.
Yes. I had a professor in college, Farrell Wellman. He's my mentor and my friend, and he's just great. He said, and this has been said before, but he harped on this. He said, news is like the weather. The closer it is to you, the more important it becomes. And I've always kind of, that's just that philosophy, and what affects the most people. For instance, the water board. We used to cover the water board, and I shouldn't be covering it here, but I mean to, but I just don't have time right now. But everybody's, well, why do you all even cover the water board? I'm like, they have 70,000 customers in a county with 80,000 people. That's important because they're setting rates, they're doing all that much stuff. Yeah. So there are reasons behind. There's a method to the madness that is what we cover and where we go.
Yeah. So when it comes to the amount of papers that are printed and distributed, and I guess your numbers with what you can share, how many papers do you print? What do your numbers look like?
They're good. We are the second largest second largest weekly in the state.
Oh wow!
Behind somebody said behind Aiken.
Aiken.
I think Aiken.
we won't quote you on it, but
We are the second largest in the state. It's either Aiken or Rock Hill.
okay.
So that's good.
Yeah.
We just won General Excellence for 2023, which I can only take, I can take more credit than partial because I didn't start till the end of July. Mm-hmm. But the 3 months prior to that, we didn't have an editor at all. So, all but 3 months I can take credit for. So that's good. Goose Creek won second place. Our circulation is, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid to give you a specific number because it kind of fluctuates because we do some targeted deliveries.
Yeah.
And that moves around.
Yeah.
But it's strong. We have a lot of readers, and if you come sit with me on a Wednesday when the paper comes out, you'll know that we have a lot of readers because they will call.
Yeah.
And they'll call me about everything. They'll call about the delivery guy threw the paper in the grass instead of the driveway.
So how do you manage that, right? Like is it just Wednesdays? It's kind of expected that there's going to be a certain time frame where you're going to just have to be there and be responsive to the community. Yeah.
And you said it, responsive is the key. They realize that some of the things that they're upset about can't be fixed, or that it wasn't us that did it. You know what I mean? But the fact that I'm just answering the phone and talking to them,
it matters.
Yeah,
it matters. But how do you negate that, right? How do you negate not getting those calls, right? And having people, is there really anything you can do to negate it? Because at the same time, I always speak, especially to anyone who listens to the podcast and knows me, that in the town, we want community feedback. I don't care I don't care if it's positive. I don't care if it's negative. Give me anything. I want it, because that's the only way you get better.
And that's the only way you know that what you're putting out there is being received.
Yeah.
Even if it's negative. I'm like, well, I mean, I hate that they're upset, but they're at least they're reading the paper.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, it's not us. Like if we misspell something, that is us. But a lot of times people won't even call about that.
Yeah.
But
like if you call me Kirk, I probably wouldn't call. I mean, So when it comes to all that stuff together, then try to change gears a little bit, just a little bit. Mm-hmm. So as a newspaper, I think we had this conversation a while back on the podcast, and I had this conversation a lot with a lot of people, but AI. How, as a paper, do you pursue it? Do you step back from it? Because there is a lot of people who, do they want their news to be AI written, right? So what's your thoughts on that, as an editor?
They just, our company just added an AI section to our employee handbook. And it says, and I agree with this, it says, and every editor should agree with this, AI should not replace what you do as a journalist.
Love it.
It should be a tool you have for it. So, something you can. So here's what I do. I write the story myself. I will copy that story. I will paste it into ChatGPT, and I will say, give this story a headline. I hit the button. It generates. It'll generate the headline. I then take that headline, because ChatGPTs are always way too long. Mm-hmm. But I take that headline. If I don't already have a headline, a lot like this one, the Republican Party story I wrote, GOP'd. That was me. I take full credit for that. But I'm talking like a lot of times we'll get press releases from the coroner, and it just says traffic fatality. Well, once I type that up and put that in ChatGPT, I use it. That's the only thing I use it for, is to get suggested headlines, and it'll give me. Sometimes I'll say make it do 2 or 3, and then I'll take what it gives me and I'll work with it to make it fit on the space where it's going in the paper. That's another reason AI
so you use it as
don't
a tool
always
in your toolbox to enhance kind of your own personal skills and mindset. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that. And I think that's how most people should pursue it, right? Is as a tool in the toolbox.
Well, and another thing is Grammarly.
Grammarly is a savior.
Which journalists have been using for years. That's AI. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's that's AI. I mean, it's the different kind.
Yeah.
But that's artificial, and that's a computer proofreading your stuff. So
And it's just it's kind of the world we live in now. Does it allow are writers as strong as they used to be now? No, and that's okay. I mean, the reason is because it's a different age, it's a different time, right? And we have the technology and people use these tools, but at the same time, there is a true skill and use case for being a true good writer, right? And so, like for me coming up in my undergrad, I came up right before AI hit.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to write, and I was probably the last little wave that actually had to really learn the skill from start to finish without any help from AI.
I had one of my college professors tell me that, and they'd been there forever, but they said the quality of journalist writing overall dropped down to a whole different level, as soon as Microsoft Word had spell check. He said as soon as Microsoft Word came out with spell check, everything dropped a level because people relied on that to fix all their misspellings. Of course, it doesn't catch proper names and stuff like that. But he was just saying, he's like, before they had any of that, it was 4 or 5 drafts sometimes and stuff.
Yeah, and I had a professor in college, and I won't name, but I went to CSU, and so you know who you are if you're listening to the podcast because I appreciate you more than you know. But I had a professor who gave me basically our whole class, we had to write a really large paper, but we weren't allowed to use our laptop. It had to be handwritten.
Oh.
And
I love
that was unheard of.
I love that though.
And because I went to school from 2016 to 2020. So it was, like I said, right before the cusp of true AI, but Microsoft Word was there, right? And so we were typing on our laptop, it was spell check, right? And so we had to write it. And I'm like,
learned a lot about yourselves.
Man, we learned, and it was amazing. And you were right. It was 4 or 5 drafts for all us students because we were learning like the different ways, and his reasoning behind it was to really get us to become better writers.
Yeah, I love that. I should start. Well, maybe not. I was going to say I should have my guys submit their stuff to me handwritten, but I don't want to go down that path.
So I will say I have, there is technology now where you could like take a picture and it will turn what you write into type. Yeah. And there is times where I will actually write and then use my phone, scan it, and it types. A lot of my press releases, honestly, half of them are written like on paper. Because that's that tactile. Well, actually, a lot of times I actually write on my tablet now. Yeah. And
but still, you handwrite.
It is a handwritten. It's not the same though. But it's the Samsung tablet. The Samsung Note. A little plug for Samsung because most of y'all are probably Apple. But with Samsung, you write on Samsung Notes, and then it will transcribe it
automatically
after the fact to straight type. Yeah. And so,
well, see, that's another thing.
Then I see all the red lines.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and if for any journalists listening, if you're not using Otter or a similar program to you're nuts at this point, because I mean, Otter was it transcribes in real time. You just turn it on, and it would everything we're saying right now. It would be typed out into a document when we're finished.
Yeah.
But again, that doesn't replace the human element because
there's true knowledge you need to have.
Well, and you got to go back and listen to it because it doesn't understand slang, it doesn't understand accents. You wouldn't believe some of the crap it thinks I say. Like it doesn't understand a lot of I don't want to say slang, but if somebody says gonna instead of going to, it'll think it says gonna like the rapper.
Yeah.
Gonna, you still
don't rely on it.
Yeah, you still have.
And I've seen people who type stuff into ChatGPT, copy that, and use it in their professional roles. I'm not going to go into more about that. It's nothing in our circle. Yeah. This is people in my circle outside of. But like
Well, you know what? You know, ChatGPT's got that. It's got a certain way about it, and to me, it's so recognizable.
It is.
Like
It's robotic.
yeah, and
It's robotic,
and it's
as it should be.
and
I mean, it's
repetitive.
AI.
And
It's
repetitive,
AI.
right? I mean, it's right, exactly. It's what you would expect a robot to write.
Yeah.
But I think that's dangerous. I mean, I don't say dangerous. That's a bad practice, a bad habit to get into.
It's a bad habit.
Yeah.
And so, switch gears a little bit, because I think I'd be mistaken if I didn't ask you for tips on anyone who's listening if they want to become a journalist or enter the media world. What are some tips for anyone that you might, or nuggets that you would like to give to our listeners or watchers, for anyone who's interested in basically what you do?
Oh, well, the first thing is if you got shyness about you got to get that out of you. Like some of the best reporters I've ever hired were servers in college, because they talk.
I'm telling you, when my daughter grows up, when she's 16, I'm putting, she can make her own choices. I'm gonna be that parent.
You're gonna
but
guide her
I'm gonna
toward-
guide her towards a serving job.
I'm telling you,
because I did it.
there's so many benefits to that.
Oh, I mean, you just learn so much.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But servers are needed, but you learn. I'm a big advocate for respecting our food and bev employees, because they sometimes get the crap end.
Me too. I'm very big on our service industry.
I hate that, because they're grinding.
Man, my wife gets on me about how much I tip.
Yeah, I tip well too,
I do
and
too.
everyone should tip well, by
That's
the
right.
way. Especially here in Summerville, because our servers are our food scene. I'm going off topic a little bit, but I'm
That's
going to
right.
say it.
That's
Our
fine.
food scene here is amazing.
Yes.
Tip your servers, tip your bartenders, because it's another thing that makes Summerville. Summerville is our food scene.
Oh, I love it.
Our food and bev.
Look
And-
at me.
yeah,
You know I
same.
love it.
I mean, I'm trying to lose it a little bit, but
Well, I am too. But
but that's the thing. Like my
office is connected to the ice house, Chris.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
What am I supposed to do?
I couldn't imagine. We just had this coffee shop open up down here now.
The LaFleur or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, and so it's a mess.
I mean, I'm going to ask the ice house.
Puma's
folks.
is right there. Like I'm always going to be getting a
Yes.
hot dog.
Yeah.
And so
Well, I'm going to ask I got Eva's. I can stand in front of my office and see Eva's, the ice house, and Puma's.
yeah.
So
do
what
it.
am I supposed to do?
You're gonna
But
go-
I'm going to talk to the ice house people and see if I can't get like a pneumatic tube,
Yeah.
like at the banks.
You
where I
should.
can just put something in it, shoot it over to my
Or you
office.
should have like your little like kind of VIP section.
Yeah.
VIP table.
Yeah.
No one else sit there. Whenever you come, it's open and available for
And
you.
just like a little stairwell, like a little
Yeah.
step out of
Yeah.
the window and down. Oh, tips.
yeah.
Well,
on topic.
I just thought of one. Don't come into this if they're an aspiring journalist, like a college student or even a high school student. Don't come into this profession with the anticipation that you're going to win a Pulitzer or that you're going to end up at the New York Times or whatever. Most journalists work, community papers, weeklies like this one.
Gotta grind.
Yes, and I think these are way more rewarding than the big papers.
Ooh,
too, 'cause
explain.
If you go to if you're a New York Times reporter and you show up to cover something, maybe some other reporters there are going to know who you are. Nobody else is going to know who you are. When I show up to stuff here, even if I don't know them, I know them, and I think they know at least who I am.
You're a part of the community.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's that, and that says a lot, and that goes a lot with fostering, trust. With
Or they're like, oh, I'm gonna be on camera.
well, there's two. I've always said there's two different types of newspapers. There's one where you show up and they're like, oh yes, the newspaper's here, and then there's another kind of newspaper where when you show up they say, oh man, the newspaper's here. I want to be the oh yes, the newspaper's here guy, and I'm not saying that I tailor what we cover or what I write to not be the oh man, the newspaper's here. Obviously, if you read the paper, then you know that I don't do that. But it's not about me, it's about the community. There's the people, the public kind of sets their own view of you. Mm-hmm. So you will find jobs like this way more rewarding.
Yeah, and like your job and my job, two different roles, But I say this, I spoke to a group, we were talking before we went live, but spoke to a group of PIOs yesterday, a large group, and one thing I told them is my job is to give the community the real, accurate, factual information in a timely manner. Whatever opinions or anything they make with that, I don't care. Mm-hmm. I don't care. Everyone has their feelings and opinions, and I push for that. I want people to have their different beliefs and different opinions. That's what makes us such a great community, and because we're able to have open dialogue and communication, and we're so diverse. We have so many different types of people here within our community. It makes it amazing. My job is to give you that information, and you make your opinion. Yeah. Whatever your opinion is, doesn't bother me.
Yeah, and you can't.
It doesn't bother me.
If you let that bother you, same with me. If I let that bother me, that way lies madness. I mean, you just can't. You can't live that way.
But before we close this thing up, you have anything else you want to bring up for the sake of the community?
I do want to say that we have been welcomed here, my wife and I, wonderfully so far.
You'll continue to be. That's Summerville for you. Yeah. That's Summerville for you. We're family here.
Carol Ann, my neighbor, the first night I moved in there, I was actually down here a week before my wife did move down. But the first night I spent in my house, my neighbor Carol Ann comes over and gives me brownies.
Love that.
Come home from my first day at work, and there's cookies on my patio.
Love that.
And I'm just like, this is Southern hospitality. Of course, my neighbor's from Pennsylvania.
Hey.
And then Tom, who he and his wife dropped off the cookies. I think they're not from here, but either way,
probably up north, like me.
Yeah. But either way, that everything's just been great here. We love it. What's not to love?
No,
it's a great strong paper. It's a people who, whether you live, like I've been here 8 months, we love it here. Like we're very pro Summerville.
Yeah.
And so you
learn to become pro Summerville because you learn what Summerville's about.
Yeah, and then, so you can imagine how the people who've been here their entire life, or 25 years, or however long, feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
If I've been here 8 months and I'm already like, don't talk about something, don't talk bad about Summerville around me.
Yeah.
There's people. I love the passion that people have, and that in their town. And that's important for a community newspaper like mine to survive. If you're not passionate about it, if these people weren't passionate about Summerville, there wouldn't be anything in that paper that interested them.
Yeah.
So I love it, and we love it. And
I do want to say, when you took over the paper, working with you has been a pleasure. I'm excited to continue working with you. You make working with a local media very easy. I could trust you, and that's
important.
That's a very important because I always tell my fellow PIOs and even my mom, what do you do, Chris? Like, what do you do? And so one thing I tell her is like, media relations is a big aspect of it. Media is literally, you guys are my employees per se, mm-hmm. and I'm your employee. Like we're a team. We have to work with each other, and we have to build those relationships and that trust. And if we don't have that, then it only hurts our community, right? And so I think what you and I can both agree on as we end this conversation, Brandon, is we are here for the community, and we push to give the community the information as quickly as possible, and they rely on us.
Yep.
They rely on us, and we'll continue to do the hard work for them so they can be informed.
And that's a big responsibility that I don't think you or either one take lightly. So
no, let's keep it going.
That's why we're doing so well working together.
Yes, Brandon. But hey, until next time, I appreciate it,
sir. I appreciate you,
and we'll keep in touch. But thank you guys for listening. And if you have any questions or anything or any follow-up for Brandon, I'm sure his emails are open. If you want to follow up with him or have any questions for me. But until next time, thank you so much.